Welcome to the midweek mailbag. We are back. You can't kill us. We're still alive. Still kicking. It is NFC Championship week. It is late January. And we still got Detroit Lions football to talk to you, so we're going to be here. That's our promise. Unless it's a week in which we can't be here, then we won't be here. But this is a week we can be here, and we are here to talk about the Lions in the NFC Championship game. My name is Jeremy Reisman. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. I am Detroit Lions beat writer / producer of Pride of Detroit. With me, as always, is the managing editor of Pride of Detroit, is the machine, is Erik, with a K, Schlitt on Twitter. Erik freaking Schlitt. Erik, how we doing, buddy?
Hey, bud. I tell you, this is a grind. Yeah, this is a bit of a grind
It
going
is.
into the playoffs like this. My body is not accustomed to this late season push, so it's fun though. I tell you that much. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal today. The latest Mel Kiper mock draft dropped, and
Right.
and I think we both looked at each other and be like, who cares? Who cares?
And look,
We're not covering it. We're not covering it. Who cares?
Dane Brugler has done 2. Mel Kiper's done 1. Daniel Jeremiah's done 1. And we haven't looked or we haven't written about any of it.
Some
So,
cornerback goes to the Lions. Who cares? That's 3 months from now.
well, yeah, we'll care in a little bit, but not right now.
No.
Not right now.
Nope. And what we do care about, I can guarantee you, we got 0 questions about the NFL draft this week, and I am more than thankful for that. But yeah, if you have questions for us, as always, you can send them to us on Twitter. Some of you email them to me. Some of you people DM them to me. I prefer them on Twitter, so they're all in one place. But I appreciate the enthusiasm from everyone. And in fact, we are going to kick things off with a question actually from one of our Pride of Detroit direct subscribers. And if you don't know what that is, it's our premium newsletter. You can go to pridedetroit.com/subscribe for more information on that. You get custom columns, some custom film breakdowns, some exclusive videos of Erik and I post game. It's a lot of fun. But this email comes from someone named Tamor, one of our subscribers, says, was San Francisco beating Green Bay a blessing in disguise? All the pressure is on the 49ers now, whereas if the Packers had won, the pressure would have been on the Lions. They probably would have obviously been favorites. They would have been at home, all that sort of stuff. Do you buy that at all? Do you think that, we know this team loves the underdog identity, right? And Dan Campbell even said it'll be a little bit nice going on the road so that we can kind of have that mentality of breaking things up. And if we get to the Super Bowl, we won't have grown accustomed to a 130 decibels, whatever it was at Ford Field. Are
134 this week.
134. Yeah. Are you buying at all that maybe this was a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Detroit?
I don't think so. I believe that they would have preferred to play at home. There's a lot of comfort that you get to have being able to work and operate from your natural environment. Having the home crowd behind you, I think is a big advantage, yeah. Especially when it's, that loud. And so I also think that they can match up pretty good with the Packers. They've seen them twice. They know that opponent. And so I would have preferred the Packers, not just because I'm tired and didn't want to travel to California, but in general, I think the team probably would have probably made for more efficient work time. They could have focused more on things that they already knew instead of trying to learn more stuff as they go. And so I think that would have been their preference. At the same time, you got to go through the best teams, and San Fran has been at the top of the NFC pretty much the whole season. So you got to go through them, and that's what is going to make the Super Bowl, feel even better, is knowing that you've earned it and you didn't just, get a pass through the first 3 rounds.
Well, first of all, I don't think that truly exists. You just skirted your way to the Super Bowl. No, the Lions have beaten 2 of the hottest teams in the NFC in a row. It would have had to been a third if it was Green Bay, right? Because I think
Sure.
that was part of the email too. I did shorten it down on my own. is like this was a very hot Packers team that embarrassed a Dallas Cowboys team on the road. That they took it to the Lions pretty tough last time on Thanksgiving, and I like from a fan point of view, this matchup against the 49ers, there is a lot less pressure, right? Like you can hang your head pretty high if you end up losing to a 49ers team in San Francisco in the NFC Championship game. I don't want it to happen, obviously, and I'll be sad if it does. But that wouldn't come close to matching like the heartbreak of losing to the Green Bay Packers at home, watching Jordan Love in his first year as a starter walk his way into the Super Bowl. All of that would have been much more painful of a death than potentially losing to the 49ers. But in terms of like, I don't know, I think this team would have much rather faced the Packers. For all the reasons you said, they match up better. They know them better. They would have been at home, I think. So, like from a fan point of view, I totally get what Taymor's saying. Like, yeah, that would have been scary. That would have been high pressure, high anxiety, and I don't want to like feed this whole like, oh, we're playing with house money with San Francisco because the expectations are low because they're 7-point underdogs, all that sort of stuff. I still think this is an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. I still think this is a beatable team. I don't want to see my team lose when they've gotten this close in year one of being a competitive football team. But I also, there isn't just like that other side of like, it's going to be a disaster if they lose this game. Because one, I know it's not going to be the Packers in the Super Bowl no matter what happens. And two, because I know this team's probably going to be back pretty soon.
Still got, with the Packers, I'm not worried. I'm still not scared of them. I'm not. The mojo's gone. It's interesting. I don't think while the 49ers are the betting favorites, and I think the majority of people when it comes time to pick are probably going to pick the 49ers. Like I said, 49ers have been at the top pretty much all season. There are going to be a lot of people though that pick Detroit. I think more than what we're expecting. We're already starting to hear people come out early in the week and say, I'm betting on the Lions. Like it's a bit surprising, especially when the opening betting line was as big as it was.
Yeah.
But you know what? The opening betting line was big for Dallas too. And look what happened to them. So I'm not worried about that. Betting line, it is what it is every week, and it's geared towards the betting public. And so I'm very interested to see how the supporters break down. From a couple of the national people that I've talked to, a couple that have reached out to me have said, man, I hope you guys win because I don't want to watch Brock check down Purdy throwing in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And just from an entertainment standpoint, I think the Lions are a lot of fun nationally too, beyond just locally. And so I think there's going to be a lot of Lions supporters for this game.
That is a wild mischaracterization of Brock Purdy, but I'll let it slide.
It's not
I'll let it slide.
I
know.
Not my words. This is what I was said to me.
All right, next question here before we kind of get into the Lions 49ers stuff. I think this is a fun question that we can reflect on real quick, just to reflect on the awesome season. Riley O'Brien on Twitter asks, do you have a single favorite play from this season thus far? Just the first one that comes to mind.
I don't know if I do. Probably, I think the one that jumped me out of my seat the most was the Craig Reynolds block against Tampa Bay in Week 6.
Yeah,
like, that was unbelievable.
That was great.
That was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So like that might be my favorite. I'd have to think on it a little bit more, but off the top of my head, I think that block was sensational. You don't see that often.
That's a really good answer. And unfortunately, I don't really have as good of an answer. The first to answer like as the first one that popped into my mind, it was David Montgomery's 75-yard rushing touchdown against the Chargers.
That was fantastic.
That. I mean, first of all, it was just like I didn't know Montgomery was capable of that. Like if I were to tell you the Lions had a 75-yard rushing touchdown, 99% of you would be like, oh, how quick did Jahmyr Gibbs? Did anyone touch Jahmyr Gibbs on the way in? But no, it was Montgomery. You had the J-Mo block downfield. It was
big hole cutback. That was fun.
It was a really fun play.
Brian Branch pick 6 in the opener.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun.
That's a good one.
I think the Gibbs touchdown against Tampa in the divisional round, that had me shaking you
Yeah.
like wild. Like I was that was very exciting because of the moment,
Right.
the what was on the line,
Sure.
and then the run itself, like
Yep.
to just get somebody dead to rights in the hole and just be like, well, I'll just go this way. Because he could have went the other way and it still would have been the same result.
Right.
I think he just went to Amon Ra's side because he's the better blocker.
Right.
And it was easy. So yeah,
I mean, if you want to talk about stakes, like the iffy pick in Minnesota, and obviously now the Derek Barnes interception, like they all belong to be in that conversation now for sure.
Yeah, lots of good moments, and I think when this season comes to a rest,
and we have
time to and we have time to reflect before the parade, but after the win.
That's right.
I think that's when we'll really get to appreciate, because like I've had a lot of people. I know we've stopped answering questions and we're just chatting here, but I've had a lot of people say to me like, "Oh my gosh, are you having so much fun?" And I'm like, I am just head down, focused in the moment right now, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. But I don't think I've fully grasped the magnitude of what's happening.
It's the same thing as when you ask players this a little bit.
Right.
It's
like, oh, like
I'll let you know at the end of the season. Like I can't fully grasp everything that's happening. I haven't had a chance to like just stop and think about everything that's happened this year. And I try to pump the brakes on the week as much as possible and just like sit there and sit with where we're at. The fact that both of us are going to San Francisco this week to cover an NFC Championship game that the Lions are in is insane. But yeah, it does feel like there is a certain amount of processing that's also still happening with both of us because we're just like worked to the bone here.
Well, like in the referee article I wrote this morning, I wrote in the opening sentence, this is probably the biggest game in Lions Super Bowl for the Lions during the Super Bowl era.
Right.
And I like had to pause for a second. And I was like, because first of all, we all know I don't like Clete Blakeman. Right. Yeah. And so like I was already angry to write that. And then when I wrote that, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's accurate. Like that. Right. This is a moment. And I hope there's a lot of fans out there that are taking the time to appreciate it more than we're able to at this moment. But it's going to be a huge weekend up ahead.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the game stuff and start with a lot of people want to know some injury stuff. Our own John Whitaker asked, who plays more snaps this week, Zach Ertz or Firkser?
Well, it's a good question because Ertz hasn't been with the team. He is more of a pass catcher than a blocker, but he's still a veteran who's balanced, and he knows Steve Hayden, the Lions tight end coach. From a talent standpoint, you would say it's Ertz. I've been with the team and I might be more suited to be a better blocker, it could be Firkser. And in all honesty, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't. I don't have a definitive answer. I could be talked into both decisions because it's not like Ertz, like he's a veteran. He's been around for so long. Like some of these guys you can just plug and play. And at the same time, we've seen Lions put these guys through long acclimation process. Look at Tyson Alualu. Look at Bruce Irvin. They've had to go through this slow acclimation process before they get on the field. You don't have that kind of time with Ertz. You know what I mean? So how much can he learn? How fast can he learn? How much are you going to ask him to do? I think that determines, how much he plays.
Yeah. Dan, so I listened to Dan on 97.1 this morning, and he talked about it a little bit, and his answer was interesting. It was like, well, he said almost kind of what he said about James Houston last week is like, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still need to like make sure that he's even going to be out there. But it wasn't the same way where it's like, oh, you're at it. You hear him saying there like, oh, he's not going to play. It was more like we have to figure out what our game plan is. We have to
Mhm.
figure out what we want to do against the San Francisco defense. Because if it's going, like, if the game plan is we want to run the ball 40 times, you might not see him at all. If the game plan
Yeah.
is like, hey, maybe we can attack both linebackers or, get Ertz involved in the passing game a little bit to take some of the load off of, all of our interior receivers, obviously, including Laporta. Maybe you do activate him. So that was kind of his mindset, I think, and that's probably where his mindset is right now. It's like, we just needed another body in the room that we know we could probably trust at a moment's notice, but we haven't developed our game plan yet. We're not going to know our offensive game plan until Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And at that point, we're going to have a better idea of, can this guy help us this week, or is he a guy that maybe we hold off to the Super Bowl, or, just an insurance policy who maybe we have active on game day but don't really plan on using.
It's if I'm not mistaken, they've kind of had some like contact with him for a couple of weeks, so it's possible he's been like preparing.
Right.
It's like I said, the Steve Hayden connection goes a long way. Um, for younger players, tight end is really hard to learn, but for veterans, again, it's a shorter learning curve for them. And then the Lions run a West Coast offense, which is common. Like
Yeah.
it's a common trait.
Sure.
And so if he understands the verbiage, and maybe they were planning on this, bringing him on, and maybe they, were like, hey, here's some of our verbiage, and a couple weeks ago, and just didn't have the room to bring him on, or he wasn't ready, or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could happen to get him on the field. At the same time, it wouldn't be surprising to see more big sets, 6 offensive linemen. Wouldn't be surprising to see more of Ferkser. Even though it's just, Ertz is such a veteran. Like, I do think you could drop him in if you really needed to, if you felt comfortable with it.
Right. The other big injury, obviously, from this past week was to Jonah Jackson. It's more or less confirmed at this point he's not going to play in this game. Maybe has a shot to play in the Super Bowl if the Lions get there. So Felonious Monk at 313 Dennis asks, life without Jonah, what can be done to help Coyote Aushika?
That's hard, right? Because there's not a ton you can do like you can keep a back in to block, but a lot of times you're keeping a back in to blitz. You can lean Jonah his way, which puts a little bit more stress on Graham. There's not really a great answer for guards because they have to work in such a small area. Some of the blocking scheme though, that's really about it. Like you can have Graham be a little bit more free, and then have Frank like punch down left right off the snap and then adjust. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think they're going to run the scheme the way that they want. I don't think they're really going to try and adjust for him. I think that he's been around, and they trust him, that they're just going to run the offense that they want. And I don't really expect a lot of tweaks.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, well, maybe they just run the ball more away from him, but I'm like, oh, right, they do that anyways, because that's where Penei Sewell is. Like, yeah, just run right a lot more. But yeah, I mean, maybe they do add another offensive lineman out there. We saw, was it against Dallas, I think? I feel like it was a lot in that game. Obviously, we know.
Against Dallas, yeah.
But like,
less. I think it was...
You'd have Penei on the left side sometimes, right? Like outside of
Sure.
Taylor. But I mean, to me, this is kind of huge, unfortunately. Like, this injury is bad news. It's a bad week to have it too, because that interior defensive line of the 49ers, not that like the Lions haven't been tested there the past 2 weeks anyways, but Hargrave and Armstead are like 2 of the top 5 pass rushing interior defensive linemen in football. And that's going, I mean, Aushika gave up 7 or 8 pressures last week in 3/4 of a game.
It's I honestly thought, based on his game, I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have entertained switching Graham and trying Sorsdal. Because as much as Sorsdal is still rough around the edges, he's bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's had a game where he's given up, like 7. Whereas I think Aushika's done that twice.
Right.
So, but it sure sounds like based on Monday,
Yeah.
what Dan said, it sure sounds like they're sticking with him.
Yeah. So, I mean, they could always change their mind. Obviously, they're going to talk it over. They're going to rewatch the tape from the Bucks game and see what they think of Aushika. But it's a rough week for that to go down because the 49ers are a team that's very much equipped to take advantage of your weak link on the offensive line, particular if it is in the interior there.
Well, the thing is with the Niners is they have talent everywhere. So, and losing anybody was, I think, going to be glaring. There's only a couple of spots that I think are vulnerable. Other than that, they have above average players at probably like 9 of their 11 defensive positions. So they're talented.
Yep.
That's no secret. Yeah.
Clarence Oddbody, a related question here, says, what's more concerning for the Lions versus the 49ers, replacing Jonah Jackson or the secondary versus Purdy and all of the 49ers' weapons on offense?
I don't know. I think they're both concerning because those are potential weaknesses. Mm-hmm. My kind of philosophy with the Lions defense right now and what I think it's been for the last month or 2 has been they know they're going to shed yards. They know they're probably going to shed points, but they're probably only going to give up about 24.
Yeah.
And if they think that if they can hold that opposing offense to 24 points, the Lions offense is good enough to put 30 on the board. And that's how they've been winning. Yeah. So I'm not overly worried about the Lions secondary. I actually thought they showed me more last week than they had the couple of weeks prior. We saw more blitzing, more impact. I still think they have some really, glaring weaknesses that they're not going to have answers to fix, but they're going to shed points or yards. They're going to shed yards and they're going to hopefully lock it down in the red zone and hopefully limit those points. And if they can, their offense is good enough to win. So the secondary is what it is. So maybe I'm more concerned about Jonah, but I don't even know. I mean, it's just because it's so new. I don't know. They're both concerning. I just don't know if I could, which one is more concerning. Sorry.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit more concerned about Jonah and Aushika because that's like the end, right? I mean, Dan Campbell's literally said it before. That's the engine to the entire team is that offensive line, and we've seen Aushika in there several times this year, and it has not been pretty. I mean, how many times have we during the first half of the season we're like, man, if this offensive line could ever get healthy, like this team is going to be really, really good, and then it finally got healthy, and it was really, really good, and it's just like, yep. That's exactly what happened. That's what needed to happen. And now we're back to kind of not square one, but Aushika is a liability out there. And I just got done saying how the 49ers are really well equipped to attack that, to exploit that. Now, the 49ers have the best offense in football. I don't want to downplay that. I don't want to downplay the season that Brock Purdy was having. I mean, he was in the MVP conversation for almost the entire season until like one bad game, and then it was over. I also don't want to downplay Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is PFF's second best wide receiver in football.
Sure.
I think a lot of people overlook how good of a receiver he is because of Deebo Samuel and, the whole like EPA of the 49ers offense is like top 1 in the league with Deebo out there and like way middle of the pack with him on the sidelines. But Ayuk is just as dangerous. The thing though is they are not like the deep ball, hit the perimeter of the defense kind of passing game. And that's what the Lions have struggled with. So I think they match up better against a 49ers passing attack than they do against the Rams, than they do against the Buccaneers, than they did against Dallas. Those are deep shot perimeter offenses where that's not the 49ers game. Now, the 49ers have a bunch of that motion stuff. They are at least a little bit similar to what the Rams do or did. And so that's still going to present a ton of problems, right? It's the motion. It's the yards after the catch, which Puka Nacua was very capable of doing against the Lions. And that's going to be a similar kind of issue this week. So it's better than I think some of these deep shot deep, offenses, but it's not exactly a good situation for Detroit. So I still think it, if I were to pick my poison, like I'd prefer this kind of offense to one of the deep shot ones. But I guess that's why I think maybe the Jonah injury is a little bit more worrisome on my end.
So San Fran's scheme, their offensive scheme, is rooted in the whole Shanahan, like from his dad, right? But that scheme you also see in Minnesota and in LA because they all came from that same Mike Shanahan run offense, right? Like they were all versed in that. And Packers, same thing. They all come from that. So this is an offense that the Lions are going to be familiar with. They're going to have some preparation for. It's just going to be a matter of talent, right? Can they match up with the talent? I think if Debo misses the game, it really changes the dynamics of how San Francisco operates, which is shocking to me because they have one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the game. They have one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the game. And they have two really good receivers, like you said. Ayuk is way up there in PFF's rankings. Yet, when you take Debo out of the equation, they do struggle, and it's really surprising because they're so talented.
Right.
And so he could play a factor because it does limit them and what they can do. You take Debo away, and now you take away some of that duality threat that they have on offense. And then you have your two best guys working inside the seams and just really one vertical threat outside in Ayuk. And so I think the Lions can adjust to that. With Debo, you have to account for him with another defender. You have to you're spread out a little bit more.
Yep.
And it's not the case if he's not in. So I think the defense can adapt a little bit easier. But yeah, again, I am a little concerned. I do think I keep coming back to the Jonah because, like you said, it's the engine.
Right.
On the plus side, they scored 3 touchdowns with Awashika in the game. They only scored 10 points with when Jonah was in the game. So it's not like they're not capable of scoring with him. It's not like with him being in the game, all of a sudden the brakes they're gonna be driving a car with a boot on it.
Right.
They're still a high firing offense that can put up points, and so they're concerning. But I mean, I don't think there's going to be a ton to be concerned about, but those are probably the most two glaring.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We're going to get into some positive things, maybe some matchups that favor the Lions. So now that we have scared you into a corner, when we come back here on the Midweek Mailbag NFC Championship Edition, we'll be right back.
Gave me the chills a little bit there.
Okay. Let me get to some. Only a couple alerts here. Probably because we're doing a little weird matinee show. But thank you to everyone who's stopping by, hanging out over on YouTube, over here on Twitch. 27 minutes ago, 9 months subscribed to us here on Twitch is Brad Holmes's Bulge. Says donate to Frank Ragnow's foundation to show him how much we love him. Yeah, shout out Tyrell Crosby for sorry, the Lions just made roster moves. For shouting out his foundation in the middle of that. Weird.
Oh,
just
hold on. Yeah, let's look at this.
Just a bunch of practice squad moves. Jamar Jefferson.
And none of them are Zach Ertz.
Why does this feel like this was a transaction from 8 months ago? Jamar Jefferson goes on practice squad IR, which is weird in and of itself. Raymond Johnson, the edge defender.
Okay, look, the move to IR is low key keeping his rights. That. Although practice squad IR, technically he'll still be street free agent, so maybe not. Maybe he just got hurt and they had to. He gets paid this way. Let's put it that way.
They released Raymond Johnson from the practice squad, and then they signed an offensive lineman, Matt Farniak, who I believe has been around before.
Yeah, he was on the team. They just released him 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So he's brought back. He's a 5 OL position player.
And then Jake Funk, who who I don't know anything about, the running back, signed to the practice squad to replace Jamar Jefferson. Okay. I don't think any of these guys are going to play, so it's not really... I don't know.
I was intrigued by Farniak when they brought him in last time, because he is an athlete and he was drafted by the Cowboys like a year before last. So yeah, not this year, but last year, I think it was. And he was in contention for a starting guard spot for them. And
Yeah.
then he kind of fell off through the camp battle, and then eventually got to the point where they didn't have room for him, which is, not encouraging, but
Right.
he still was showing enough promise in camp that they were like considering him. So see kind of upside he has. Again, I'm with you. I don't expect any of these guys to really be a factor other than just on the practice field, but he's an interesting guy that I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him like a futures deal or something like
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, that's the move, right? That's why you shuffle your practice squad towards the end of the season, is because you want your first crack to give them futures deals, right? Get him in the building.
Well, yeah, and also with Jonah down, you probably need another lineman in order to operate your practice the way you want to.
That's
so and then the running back's a running back for running back replacement. Johnson was their third edge rusher on the practice squad since they brought Julian back, so he's kind of he falls victim to that. Yeah, it is surprising not to see Ertz amongst these moves.
I'm sure it'll happen before the practice on Wednesday.
Well, I'm wondering if like maybe they're going to just. I mean, yeah, it will happen before practice on Wednesday, but I'm wondering if he is a. I mean, they announced him as signed to the practice squad.
They haven't announced anything.
No, right. I'm sorry.
The reports.
The national reports were announced as practice squad. I'm wondering if he is going to the practice squad, if it's like they move Brock to IR and then promote someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that frees up the spot.
Maybe it's Schofield, maybe it's Alu.
Yeah, or Kabinda.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Like somebody like, in my opinion, it would be Alu or Kabinda, because those are the two guys you've been elevating.
Right.
And so now by signing one of them to the practice squad, you can elevate the other one plus plus Ertz. And so and it's all technical jargon. And at the end of the day, all of these guys that end up playing are going to make the same amount of money no matter what.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if they're coming from the practice squad onto the 53, or if they're on the 53. Only thing that will matter is what happens at the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Do they become a street free agent where they can immediately sign, or if they're on the roster, do they have to stay on the roster till the March, 15 or 12 or whatever it is when free agency starts? They have to stay on the roster a little longer. So it's really just, it's not going to impact anything financially for the players, and it's not going to really impact anything for the game. All of this is just contract logistics for once the season is over, 3 weeks from now, whatever it is.
Thank you to I feel like this is just you're only subscribing to our YouTube to get a little promo here, but I'm going to say it anyways. Advantage Insurance Advisors, thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube. And Dr. Lyons versus everybody, thank you for the 10 months subscribed here on Twitch. All right. We are caught up, which means during the break here, before we jump back into the show, we can answer some of your guys' questions. So either on YouTube or Twitch, you can throw some questions here in the chat. We'll try to answer them.
I saw a couple purple highlights as I don't know if I caught them in the scroll or not.
Okay.
I know I'm trying to find them. I also can't see, so I'm having a hard time with that.
Dumb glasses situation.
Yes. I'm old, and I think most people are familiar with
Oh,
that. And my eyes are going very bad, and I'm wearing my backups because my regular glasses broke. And so I can't see very well. It's I have to do like this old man like hold things at a distance in order to see things. So I'm trying to like all right. Here's the question. Texas Wolverine. Which position coach's departure for a promotion this year would hurt the most? Not that I don't trust Dan to find a quality guys, but I'm curious about our thoughts. I think without question, the position coach, if a position coach departed for a job, the one that would hurt the most is Kelvin Shepard.
oh, that is not. I was certain I knew your answer, and that was not going to be
Well,
it.
you think it was going to be Hank Fraley, but I don't think
Yes,
Hank Fraley's going to get offensive coordinator job. I don't think he wants an offensive coordinator job. I don't know. Does he?
there's been
From when
rumors, Eric.
really?
There's
Well,
a
good for him.
Tom Pelissero tweet
Oh,
that said
wow.
if Ben Johnson goes, be on the lookout for potentially Hank Fraley as his offensive coordinator.
Oh, wow. All right. Well,
He
yeah,
he used
that would be bad.
very soft languages, but he threw it out there, which doesn't mean nothing to me. But
No.
I would like that news shocks me too because I was right there
Mhm.
with you. I'm just like Hank is
From
he
yeah,
from I don't know, he like everything about that man, the vibes he gives off is just like I'm gonna be an offensive line coach for life and I'm gonna love
yeah.
every second of it.
And they're going to make him the highest paid offensive line coach probably, honestly. Um but okay. I think Kelvin Shepard is the heir apparent to Aaron Glenn, and I think Aaron Glenn has a real shot of getting a head coaching job. And if Aaron Glenn gets a head coaching job, I really think Kelvin Shepard's going to get a long look as the coordinator. So I think that one. I look what has happened to the linebackers. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's not like year after year after year, and you just marvel at him when you listen to him talk. He's such a smart coach, and he has such a grasp of how things work beyond him. They're beyond his position, right? He understands how to get his guys to work with the defensive line, how to, and then in coverage, how to work with the secondary. So, like, he knows how every position on defense works at an intimate level because his guys have to be able to do all of it. And
Yeah.
so, I do absolutely think Kelvin Shepard would be a massive loss. And then, yeah, I mean, Fraley's my favorite, sure, but everything every time we've ever talked to him, he's not ever given me that vibe
Right.
that he would want to be an OC.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
What's your answer?
I mean, it would be Hank if that's a real thing. I still have doubts about it, about the report.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean I've stand for Kelvin Shepard since he stepped up to the podium for the first time, man. Like I know that is an early ascension for a guy that's only been coaching at any level for 3 years. But listen, this team, just like this team isn't afraid of playing young players, I don't think they're afraid of promoting young coaches. So, I mean, look, Scotty Montgomery is another guy who has a potential offensive coordinator track here in Detroit.
Yeah,
That one
he
wouldn't
could
be
replace
great.
Ben.
He could replace Ben. So if Ben took him, that would be taking away one of your offensive coordinator candidates. And I know
No, I think if Ben left though, the Lions would make a heavy push for Scotty to stick.
yeah.
At the same time, if Scotty left, it also wouldn't surprise me to see the Lions go outside
Yeah.
the regime and be like, oh, let's just give Frank Reich a call. Or you know what I mean? Or something along those lines.
Any comment on Skip Bayless's tweet? No, stop looking at Skip Bayless's tweet. He's been blocked on my account for years. What are we doing here? How have we still not learned not to take the Skip Bayless bait? Jesus Christ, no. Stop.
I don't even know what it is. But I have seen that name pop up more in my feed today, and I still don't know what it is, which is great. But I have seen his name pop up more today than I have, you know, in years.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
He's clearly a bait artist. That's all he does.
I don't even want to know.
Like I'm not going to tell anybody. If you want to go see Skip Bayless's tweet, go search it out.
Oh, I don't.
It's not worth it. It's like it's entertainment. You should not talking heads in general. They're entertainment. They're not analysis. They're not real analysis. Their personalities just put out there to farm interaction. Yeah, I'm triggered. I hate that we give all these people, like, every time Stephen A. Smith opens his mouth. And what really pisses me off, honestly, is like he says some of these guys say the dumbest shit. Everyone gets whipped up into a tizzy, and then the minute they say something nice about them, you're all back on his side. Look, Stephen A. Smith loves the Lions. He says they're a Super Bowl. Like, no. Don't pay attention to those people when they're saying good things about our team. Don't pay attention to those people when they start saying bad things about our team. They're not worth your attention at all. Because, listen, if they have trash opinions on something and then they say something good about your team, what does that say? Don't trust them.
I don't know. I wasn't listening. What were you saying?
It's garbage. It's garbage content. And listen, if you're just in it to get entertained, fine. Those guys can be for you. But I'm hoping, since you're here right now, you are actually seeking at somewhat, like, I'm not going to call myself a football genius or anything, but like I like to think we do actual football analysis here and not just whatever, like screaming at each other, thinking we're hilarious every time we throw our Dallas Cowboys uniform in the trash. Like, you don't do that every freaking year. It's garbage. It's garbage content, and stop watching it. Anyways, any other questions?
I thought my write-up on Clete Blakeman was not overly harsh as much as I thought it was going to be when I wrote it. When I was writing it, I was like, I'm going to be mean in this, and I don't want to be mean. I don't want to look biased. And so I tried to...
I love you, Eric. I think you're always ridiculous about the officiating stuff, especially in the playoffs when it's mixed crews. Like, it doesn't matter Clete Blakeman's stats this year and his crew, because he's not working with any of the same people anymore now.
No, but Clete has a tendency to overrule his crew.
Citation needed. Citation needed. I don't believe you.
Pull up any Clete Blakeman game from the last year. Go to. Okay, I'll give you one.
One.
Go watch. Well, you wanted one. Here's your citation. November 30th. Is it November 30th or December 30th? Seahawks Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
He called that game. 19 penalties for 257 or so yards.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple mistakes. He overrode one of his officials late in the game, which was controversial. He forgot to reset the play clock after an official timeout, which then cost the Seahawks to have a delay of game penalty, which pushed them 5 yards back and then resulted in them missing their kick by just a little bit. And there's a whole bunch of fun stuff. But in that game, I know he overrode one of his officials. The guy threw a flag, and he picked it up. And so there you go. Go watch that game for fun, and watch 19 flags get thrown during that game.
How many of them did he throw?
Dude, I didn't chart it. I just know it.
But I'm just saying, the head official doesn't even throw that many flags.
But he oversees them, and he will pick them up.
He picked up one in your story you just told.
You wanted a citation. I gave you a citation off the top of my head on a Clete Blakeman game that isn't even Lions related.
I'm not surprised that you were able to do it off the head. Like, you are obsessed with this man.
I just don't like him. It was like when we were at Ford Field, and we saw the guy in the stands wearing the Logan Stenberg jersey,
uh-huh.
and I was like, oh, he's on Tampa Bay's practice squad. And then you got mad at me about knowing that too.
Yeah, yeah. You just have these weird things that you know about. Like, by the way, is Tease Tabor still on the 49ers? Is this a Tease Tabor revenge game?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'll double check, but look at. Yeah, no.
Nah, I think the whole hating specific officials is very, very silly thing that fans do. That's all. Particularly in the playoffs.
If you Google Clete Blakeman and controversy, you will find articles going all the way back to 2013.
Eric, you can do that with any official. Any official.
Not at this volume, though.
Eric.
There's a catalog. They probably have an entire section in the encyclopedia just for Clete Blakeman.
Stop it.
And it's listed under worst referee in the game.
You're the one that created it. You're the one that wrote it.
He's terrible.
It's okay. I don't expect you to be on my side chat. You very rarely are about things like this. It's fine.
See? Yeah, they agree with me.
Yeah, of course.
Right again.
Oh, the Lions fans agree about complaining about refs? Wow. Shocking. All right. Any other questions before we get back into it?
I wish I had access to the Clete Blakeman wiki page.
Yeah, that's. I would say that he's edited it, but I know that's far beyond Eric's technology grasp.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I have a lot to say about it, though.
We hear a lot about teams maybe trying to copy the Lions format in the upcoming years. So what does that mean to you, particularly regarding the necessary steps? And does that mean that they need Lions personnel? I don't know. I mean,
no, I don't think they need Lions personnel because, like, the Lions, depending on what aspect you're talking about. Are you talking about like front office, or are you talking about like coaching staff?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
because again, I don't think you need specific guys. You just need specific mentalities. Like, you can't recreate Dan Campbell.
Right.
It's just not possible.
Right.
It's just not. And if you're trying to recreate their front office, it's hard to do because they took influences from the Saints, the Rams, and the Ravens when building it. Right. Yeah. And so it's not like it's just one way. Like, yes, Ray Agnew came over with Brad Holmes, but that's because they were tight. And that happens, right? But it's not like they were like, let's just, gut the Rams front office and try and replicate that. Like, no, they were looking at, and they didn't bring anybody from the Saints. The only person they brought over from the Ravens was a coach. And so, yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to have guys from Detroit.
Yeah.
You just need to understand, like, if you understand how they did it and the mentality behind it, I think you can try and replicate it. Because it's not, again, the Lions aren't unique. They're unique to themselves, but their philosophies are based on other teams' philosophies. And so teams can look at that as well. They can say, hey, look what the Rams are doing, look what the Saints are doing, and they can come up with their own, ideas.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like front office building and using the Lions as a model, I don't think they're like, the Lions didn't reinvent the wheel there. I think it's just a matter of getting the right people. It's not like the Lions went out. I mean, they did have, their strategy of like no ego, right? That was kind of, they had that piece of paper where they wrote down all the qualities that they want in people, and an egoless
Mike
guy.
Disney wrote that.
Mm-hmm. That sort of stuff is basic leadership stuff, though, right? Like, that is not the Lions having this formula that the secret formula that they have locked in a box that no one can figure it out. It's just right. Basically like, get good people and that are capable of leadership, that are capable of delegation, that are capable of collaboration. That none of that stuff is new, and maybe it's not what some owners are focused on, and they should be. I don't know if like watching the lines will open their eyes to that. In terms of team building, though, or even staff building, in terms of coaching staff, like I think there's some gold mining to be done here in Detroit in terms of getting the former coach thing. Like, I know the Lions say that they didn't go out and specifically do that. It wasn't necessarily a goal there to just get a bunch of former players, but it works. You have to get the right guys still. You have to get the people that are still capable of compassion and leadership and communication and being a teacher. But having a staff full of people that knows what it takes to get through an NFL season, knows how to push people's buttons, but also knows when to pull the reins back a little bit and not push them too hard, that is something that we're only going to see more and more of. And again, it's not like the Lions are the first to do anything like that, but maybe the Lions took it to an extreme.
Yeah, Lions definitely took it to an extreme because you're seeing more and more player head coaches all the time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, look at Houston, right? Mm-hmm. With D'Amico Ryans, like that, he was Pierce sensational. Now, right? Exactly. Like and I think that trend, and again, Lions aren't necessarily the out ahead of the field on this, but like you said, they took it to an extreme.
Right.
But I do think there have been a lot of former players that have had success of late, and that's a trend that I do expect teams to continue to follow. So you're going to see teams doing things that look similar to the Lions, but
you still got to get the right people, right? Like Mike Singletary 100%. Did not work out in San Francisco. Well,
I mean, look, Frank Wright worked out in one place and then not another.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that as a former player, and then you're going to find that, right? You're going to you have to have that blend, and so I do think Sheila's approach to hiring both Brad and Dan independently was a little bit all out of the box. Yeah. But again, they weren't the first ones to do it. We talked about last week about Seattle doing it, about how Baltimore's done it like that. And so, but I don't think we've seen anybody do that recently. We were still seeing these GMs get hired before the coaches, but would be interesting to see if someone starts hiring more like that. We'll see how it goes. What happened?
Someone on YouTube named Watch Skip Bayless, please. Just subscribed.
That's funny. Very clever.
Please don't listen to that person. Joshua Mercer, thank you for the 100 bits, says Jeremy needs that beer on Sunday more than I knew. What do you mean? I'm fine. And then another 100 bits says, hey, Erik, tee up Jeremy for a righteous felon drop and see if he whiffs like Ben Stiller from Meet the Parents like Chris did yesterday. If you were here yesterday, we were in our first segment, and Ryan, who's in our chat, thought that Chris was teeing up a tease to righteous felon, and he wasn't. He had to get his point in, and he got his point in, and I'm like, don't worry, Chris. I got one more thing I need to get it. I want to say, but I'm gonna toss to you. Like, be ready. I got a perfect toss to righteous felon for you, and I do it, and it was so good. And then he jumped into another point, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like, everyone saw it happening. He's like, "No, but I needed to get my last point in." I'm like, "No, you literally already." It was great. It actually made it funnier, but. Anyways, you could try to toss me into a righteous felon read, but we don't do them on this podcast.
So, speaking of felons, I wonder if we're going to see Alcatraz. Because that's in San. No.
I got you. No. I got you. That was. I mean. In terms of segues, that was a 4 out of 10.
Oh no, that was terrible. But I was like, oh, Alcatraz is popular. People know where that is.
You're somehow finally gonna get the chat to turn against you by making corny jokes like that.
Well,
he's a dad.
Sorry. Yeah.
Have you been to San Francisco? You must have been to San Francisco before. You're old.
No.
Oh,
No,
never.
nope. LA a couple times, but not. I haven't been that far up the coast.
Well, there you go. You're gonna spend about 24 hours there, and that's about it.
It's gonna. Well, it's probably 48, but yeah, I'm gonna probably spend. Well, I mean, when you count travel and everything, it's like a
Sure.
48-hour trip or whatever, right? Or a little bit more. Like maybe 50-hour trip when it's all said and done. But you're spending 16 of that just traveling.
Yeah.
And then you got 12 hours for the game, and it's gonna go by fast, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
When you're talking about 60% of your time is going to be traveling and just the job that you're doing,
right.
It doesn't give you a lot of time to, and then you still have to write, and you still have to prep, and you still have to get to the facility, which is a half hour away from San Francisco, because that makes perfect sense.
Sure.
And
hey,
so
the Lions used to play in Pontiac, all right?
I know. I was just poking fun at them for moving the team when the fans didn't want them to.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, at some point, I'm hoping we sleep.
Well, that's the thing. I started doing the math, and I'm like, well, if I got like 20 hours left, how much of those are sleep related?
Right. Because the game's going to be at 3:30 Pacific time when we're there, which means it's going to end around 7 their time. We're going to take another 2 or 3 hours to do work after the game. So even then, we're not getting home to the hotel until like 10:30. We've got a 5:45 flight.
But here's the thing: that the 5:45 is Eastern.
No.
Time.
It is not.
Yeah, it is.
No,
it is.
Not.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Because then it has to be, because the total travel time is only like 8 hours and change, and we're not supposed to land until like 4:45.
Right, because we're in the air. We're losing 3 hours.
Right, but that's gonna be an early one then.
Yep.
I mean, but technically this is what 5:45 though, there is San Francisco time.
Yeah.
Is still gonna feel like 8:45 our time though. That's where I'm getting with that.
Okay.
Is that geez. In my head I had it because I was thinking 5:40, because when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I gotta get up at a 5:45 Eastern time. That's like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm like, that's going to be terrible. And then it occurred to me that it's going to be like 8:30.
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, it threw me off there for a minute, because I was thinking we had to be at the airport at 5:45 Eastern.
Right.
And that worried me a little bit, because I was like, that flight back is going to be really hard.
Yeah. Damian Smith with the 2 pounds over on YouTube says, podcast from Radio Row in Vegas in 2 weeks.
I was wondering about that, because I was like, I wonder what kind of access we could get there. Like, I know it's super, super limited and all that jazz, but I was like, I wonder. Just sit there, just live stream the whole day.
Please no. I need some sleep sometime. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says, when you're in San Francisco, you need to eat at Burma Superstar. It's incredible Burmese food. Blew my mind when I was there. Also, check out Sutro Baths if you have time in the city. I don't trust that second recommendation. First one I do. I don't know what Sutro Baths is, but I'm afraid to Google it now. Anyways.
It's like a bathhouse? There's a bunch of guys walking around like ceramic walls and tiles, and like steam coming off of the pool.
It's an outdoor area.
Oh man. That's not what I was thinking. All
right. All right, all right. You're getting out of control. Chat, should we get back into it? I think we should get back into it.
All right.
All right.
You're going in ahead of me. So
Yeah.
do you have any sites?
No, I mean I've been
Like
to San Francisco
destinations?
before. It's more about people I want to meet up with. I'm staying with a high school buddy. The first 2 nights, a cousin that I very rarely see, but was always like, I used to go to games with his dad. His dad used to have season tickets with our family, and so be pretty cool to meet up with him and his family, who I've only met half of, who lives in San Francisco and has for the past 20 years. And maybe some people from chat. Maybe.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Maybe. The problem is I don't know when I'm going to have free time.
Yeah. I'm getting in late Saturday.
Right.
Like late.
Yeah.
So like I'm getting in where I'm going to be
You're
like
just gonna
past my
crash.
bedtime.
Yeah.
Probably after 8 hours, and then it's going to be past my bedtime as it is. I'm just going to get in, get checked in, probably crash, and then figure out what's going on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Maybe go see the Golden Tate Bridge or something. I don't know.
Did you just say the Golden Tate Bridge?
What?
Jesus Christ. Should we just cancel the second segment? I'm not sure I want to look at Erik anymore. Don't give him that, chat.
Back on my side.
This man can do no wrong.
I think he's gonna, it'd be nice if he went out there. A whole bunch of people. It's a 5-hour flight unless you have a stop.
Yeah, neither of our stops in either direction is a straight shot.
Unfortunately.
Okay, they're starting to turn on you a little bit too. All right, as long as there are some people that recognize that the not.
I know there's a bunch of people going out there.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if we run into anybody though, that's for sure.
All right, let me pull up our question list and we'll get back into it. $100 from Nick the Greek says, guts of downtown San Francisco is like hell on earth. You see people ODing on the sideline. Height Ashbury is like a nail. Probably get Erik to do shrooms by mistake, though, which would be quite a prank.
No, thank you. I don't think that would be very funny.
No,
I don't think that would be very entertaining.
I don't know. I'm trying to think what you would be like on shrooms, and I don't have a good grasp of what it would be. This is a good question. This is a great mailbag question.
Does it make you sleep?
No.
Because I could sleep.
All right. Screw it. Let's get back into it.
Remind me not to travel with Nick, by the way.
Just don't accept any tea from him. All right. Just not rambling on Cleve Blakeman. All right. Where were we? Okay. Here we go. And we are back here on the Midweek Mailbag, NFC Championship Edition, Lions 49ers coming your way, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. On what? I don't even know. Fox probably this week? I should probably know that. I don't.
Correct.
Okay.
It is.
Nailed it.
Yep.
But let's get back to your questions. You guys didn't come here for my TV guide knowledge. Our next question here comes from Between the Numbers Anthony. Asks, with this likely being an quote-unquote all-in aggressive game plan, what trick plays from the Lions' past few years would you like to see them recycle this week, a la the Brock Wright Jets play from last week? And then it says in parentheses, no flea flickers, which is a great parenthetical. All-time great parenthetical.
They've taken a shot, a deep shot, the past couple of years that have paid off well. You saw it with Khalif Raymond against the Packers. You saw it with JMO, where they run this like kind of hook over the middle and then slant, and they get you your fastest guy against the safety. And I would like to see that, or a variation of that, where you basically run that safety off and you get that safety in trail, and then you Texas route Jameer Gibbs in behind him over the field, over the middle of the field. Because like I look, these linebackers for San Francisco are great, but Jameer Gibbs on the Texas route is impossible. Like it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And so there's variations that you can do on it, but I would love to see them test deep against San Fran and get them on their heels. And if you can, and I think there's benefits to it beyond just hitting that play, because if you can start stretching these safeties, it's going to open that middle of the field, which is really where you want to live anyways.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people in the chat saying like sweeps, end arounds, reverses, maybe getting JMO involved in some of that horizontal speed. And I'm not sure this is the defense to try that sort of stuff against. They got a lot of speed on that defense, particularly at the second level. But it dawned on me the other day, probably during the Bucks game, like they send Amon-Ra in motion so often, and that used to set them up to run a quick like end around to Amon-Ra. And I feel like we haven't seen that in a year. Like I feel like there's no chance they're setting up the NFC Championship game to finally pull that one out again. Are they?
Maybe. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
The other thing is a route that we haven't seen a whole lot is Jameer on a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's so custom suited for that.
Right.
Like throw a little wheel, like do your levels, do like a high low cross to bring your guys across, and then just send Jameer on a wheel behind where they vacated. Give me that.
It's not Jared Goff's best throw, which I think is maybe part of the reason they haven't done it. But at the same time, like his touchdown pass to Amon-Ra was kind of similar. Just throw that ball.
Just throw that
every time.
Exactly. The same. I mean, look, you don't just you can get Jameer to just adapt. Don't have Jared try to hit him. Yeah. Just have Jared throw the same ball every time and let Jameer just run into it. Like it just honestly, you can motion them out if you need them to get there a little sooner. You motion them out. You need them to get there a little later. You have them like do a hezzy. Like there's things that you can do to get that timing. But yeah, just throw that exact same ball and let Jameer go get it.
Do you agree with the premise of the question here though, that like the Lions are going to throw the bag at?
Yes, I absolutely think they're going to have something up their sleeve. And even if it's not something that they have like been preparing for all season or anything like that, I think they are going to look at this defense and say, we're going to have to be aggressive against them, and downfield threats. You can't, it's going to be hard to run vertical. Like you said, they're so athletic. Getting lateral is going to be really hard. So you have to get vertical. And so stretching the field with JMO, taking a deep shot at JMO, getting wheels and Texas's, and those are all things that I'm game for, because those are advantages that I think you can have against in a way above average secondary.
I'm going to skip down to our last question here because
defensive.
Because it kind of goes along with what we're saying here, and also I'm just very eager to say this Twitter handle because it makes me laugh. Felon DeGeneres asks, part of Green Bay's strategy in the passing game was targeting outside, trying to avoid Warner and Greenlaw, their linebackers.
Right.
Do the Lions take the same approach, even though our strength is passing has been over the middle of the field?
I do think there's going to be some more gap running than zone, because that's something that the Packers did. And then while you are not going to want to move away from things that have been working, which is, your weapons are mostly over the middle. I do absolutely agree that you need to stretch the outside a little bit more. You need to target the outside. That's where like a wheel can come into play. Yeah. That's where Josh Reynolds can come into play. But overall, I don't think they're going to want to get too far away from what's been working, because they've been running the same offense and putting up 30 points on the regular.
Yeah. That said, like, this is also a team that's very capable of running screens and like you said, kind of like swing.
Sure.
They like throwing swing passes to Jahmyr Gibbs every now and then. That they have enough speed, and if Khalif is back this week, like maybe that adds an extra dimension of like quick passes to the outside to make sure that they are playing a little bit more horizontally. But yeah, look, I'm with you. Like their bread and butter is up the middle, and I think Ben Johnson does an amazing job of finding ways to open up the middle, even if it doesn't mean peppering the perimeter. Hitting outside breaking routes and things like that. They don't necessarily even need to do that because Ben Johnson's so good at just being able to scheme some wide open spaces over the middle.
Both offense and defense adapts to the opponent. That's something that they've been proponents of all year long. Mm-hmm. And that's been a philosophy from day one. And it's interesting to see like some 49ers analysis of people looking at what the Lions did against the Bucs, and they're saying, well, this isn't going to work against the Niners. And I'm like, yeah, well, they're not going to do that. Right. Like they're not going to do this against the Niners because that's not going to work. Exactly what you're saying. When you rewatch that game against Tampa, they ran so many zone beaters because Tampa runs so much zone.
Right.
It was almost all zone beaters. They're not going to run all zone beaters against San Fran's man. That's not it. So you're going to have an adapted offense. You're going to have some shots that are going to go deep on the outside. And I do think the Packers had a nice blueprint, especially on the run game, where they got the Niners interior into some compromising spots. And look, Bosa's great. If you run at him, though, you can run at him. And Chase Young's great. But Chase Young isn't Chase Young anymore. He hasn't been Chase Young since, a couple years now. You can run at Chase. And if you can there's ways to attack that the Lions are going to have in their game plan that might not look anything like what we saw last week against Tampa.
Yeah, and while we're on the run game, I do think this is an opportunity for the Lions to kind of control the pace of the game running the football against this 49ers defense, because for as good as they are against the pass, there's a lot of vulnerabilities in the run game. And I mentioned Erik Armstead and Hargrave. Those guys are phenomenal, outstanding pass rushers. They're not great run defenders. And as a team, I think they're 26th in EPA when it comes to run defense, and I think they're 14th or 15th in DVOA. That might come to surprise you because like the overall numbers don't look that bad. I think they're giving up 4.1 a carry, which is about average. They're giving up like 98 or something rushing yards per game, which is better than average. In fact, I think maybe even top 5. But you look at the attempts, like teams aren't bothering to run against the 49ers because they're falling behind, because they have to keep pace with a 49ers offense. If the Lions can control the game early and run the ball, which they should be able to do, I think there's enough an advantage there in the offensive line versus their defensive line. I do think the Lions have an avenue to control a game, to be what they want on offense, and then maybe if they start having the 49ers commit more players to the box, then it does maybe open up some stuff over the top, over the middle.
Yeah, honestly, like it's almost as simple as that. It's if you have success on the ground and you use JMO to stretch the defense, that opens you up over the middle, which is exactly where you want to attack. And it may not be there right off the bat, but like we saw last week, eventually you're going to get to that point where you wear them down and that middle starts opening up again. And the Lions, they are willing to stick with things longer than a lot of teams are.
True.
And they have confidence in their run game, and they're not just going to bail on it if it gets, stunted right off the bat. I expect them to attack. I expect them in the run game. I expect them to use their tackles to try and bully the defensive ends and try and get those defensive ends on their heels. Look, Bosa versus Sewell is a great matchup. That's going to be fantastic. And then Decker against Chase, I think Decker's better. I think Decker's going to have the advantage. If it's one-on-one, I think Decker's going to win almost every time. And yes, Chase is going to still do well, and there's a lot of things they can do, but Decker is playing at a level right now that I don't think we've talked about enough. Like what he's doing right now, he is playing inspired football, and I think the Lions tackles could be a huge key, especially if you have to shuffle the interior a little bit, or if you're using, you're having to lean on Aushika. That Sewell Bosa matchup could be one of the top keys to victory.
There you go. What won't be a key to victory? Because this question comes from BK Shaky and asks, this is for Jeremy. I've seen the offensive and defensive numbers for Detroit, San Francisco. Can you talk about the special teams play and the possibility of getting Khalif Raymond back? The 49ers are average at everything. They have Jake Moody, who's decent. Probably won't matter.
25th in DVOA, special teams. They look what they did. Well,
it doesn't matter.
They gave up some big punt returns or some big kick returns last week.
That's true. They were bad on special teams against the Packers. They still won. No, I mean, I did look at some of the numbers, and they are mostly average for the season outside of DVOA, which is slanted obviously a little bit more towards a negative. But to me, there's a not noticeable advantage in one way or the other in this game. It might come down to a field goal miss here and there. I mean, we saw that happen obviously in the Buffalo game, but Moody has been good enough where I don't think I don't think the Lions are looking at Michael Badgley and being like, oh, we got this in the back. Like, we've got a big advantage here where they're on shaky ground.
The trick will be how deep you can get into their territory in a lot of ways, because Moody has a leg that they will be willing to test it.
Right.
They will be willing to let him kick beyond 50. And whereas the Lions, maybe they're not as inclined to do that, even though Badgley has shown he can hit from 50. They may not be as inclined. They may, and that might force them into being more aggressive on 3rd and 4th downs. That may force them to end up with keeping the ball, keeping possession, right? And if that happens, maybe, and then the drive stalls, you got Badgley in a better spot, and could come down. It really could. Like, this is a game where I think you're going to want, if you can get points on you might need to get points almost every drive. You know what I mean? Like, there may be a drive or two where you can afford to not get points, but you're going to almost have to score every single time down because the points are going to be at a premium.
So it sounds like you don't care about punting in this game or special teams because that's going to be a losing strategy. Anyways,
punting is always huge. It's always position. You know what I mean? Like, you can flip the field. That's why Jack Fox is paid the way he's paid. But I do think I'm more inclined to believe that it's going to be Michael Badgley might have a bigger impact than Jack Fox.
I sure hope so. All right, last duo of questions here from our good friend Jason Krolik asks, what scares you about the 49ers? What makes you believe the Lions will win? And let's answer them in that order because we want to end on a positive note.
I think the biggest thing is just the fact that they are balanced, like just across the board.
Yeah.
They have talent everywhere. They don't have a whole lot of weaknesses because they are very just even, and that balance. And yes, they have, and I think that balance leads some of their players to playing better than maybe they actually are. Right. Like some players that if you put them on a different team wouldn't have the same level of success as they do in this system with the team, with the players around them. But I think, like Detroit, these guys were all handpicked to be in that system, and they were and to work in cohesion with one another. And so that just balance, their ability to win in different ways and have talent everywhere. That's the thing that scares me the most is there's not like very obvious glaring, like, let's just throw at their CB2 type of thing.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's arguably the best roster in football. I would probably say it is the best roster in football, and they can win in so many different ways, right? They can run all over you with Christian McCaffrey. We mentioned all of the crazy offensive weapons they have through the air, and they have a quarterback that's capable of getting him the ball. They have an offensive line that isn't great on paper, but they can run the ball. Like they're very much built in the same way the Lions are in a lot of ways, in that not everyone is a pass blocking phenom on that offensive line, but everyone will maul the crap out of you in the run game. And then, yeah, all the athleticism they have on defense, they're built to stop the run too. Not as good as the Lions are, but they have guys capable of doing that, especially at the second level with that good linebacking core. That it might not be hard for Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery to find the hole, but they've made a lot of money this year in their ability to break tackles and yards after contact. 49ers are not a team that gives up a lot of yards after contact. They're a solid foundational team that knows how to tackle, that is not, the whole thing that this team was built on this year is like, we got to get these 3 and 4 yard runs into 7 and 8 yard runs. That's going to be a hell of a challenge against this defense. And they're just a well-coached team overall. I have an enormous amount of respect for a guy like Kyle Shanahan. And, if we know the struggles this Lions defense has had, and you sure know that Kyle Shanahan knows every single person's name on this Lions defense who he thinks he can exploit. So it's a mountain. It's a mountain to climb. Because they're so well rounded, because they're so capable of being dangerous in every facet of the game. But the Lions are too. How many times do I need to say it every single year? This is a top 10 passing offense. This is a top 10 run offense. This is a top 10 run defense. There aren't a lot of teams that follow that have 3 out of their 4 major categories that are really, really good at everything. And despite the fact that the Lions have been really bad in that very last category, their pass defense, they've given up 340 yards in 5 straight games. They are 4-1 in those games and arguably 5-0. They've figured out a way to exist in this competitive marketplace, whatever you want to call it, without they're missing a limb, and they are they're essentially using they're compensating, right? Like they're so good everywhere else that it doesn't seem to matter to them. And so I think you come into this 49ers game, and this is where I turn the conversation and why I'm confident about this game. They can run the ball against this team. They can, and they should. And that changes everything. It's particularly if they can stop the run on defense, which they might be able to. They haven't been as good against the run as they were maybe earlier in the season, but they're capable of it. I don't think this offensive line is unbeatable. And if the Lions, last week they weren't great against it, but they didn't use a lot of their interior guys. They didn't use a lot of Alualu. They didn't use a lot of Benito Jones. I think that probably changes this week. They're like, hey, McCaffrey is the dude that we're looking to stop. If we stop McCaffrey, we trust that we can make everything else work. And I think that's a game plan that could work. And so, listen, I know we live in a modern NFL, and I know it's cliche to say playoff football is all about running the ball and stopping the run, but there is not a team in the NFL that is more equipped to do both of those things. And against a San Francisco team that likes to do those two things as well, I think the Lions might be better at those two things than San Francisco is.
Yeah, I think that's going to lead to points too. And for me, the ability to score is going to be, I think, a thing that I'm the most confident about. Like, we talked in the POD Direct about the fact that they put up 31 points against the Bucs, and I thought their offense struggled. I was like, if their offense can hit, like, who knows where their ceiling is. And yes, this is a good, very good 49ers defense, better than the Bucs, certainly. But they are weak against the run. And as we talked about earlier in this segment, like, if you can run the ball and then you start stretching, it's going to open up exactly what you want to do, and that leads to points. And I'm confident that they can score even against one of the best defenses in the league. And so I expect the offense to score. And so if the defense can do what it's been doing, keep them to 24 points or less, this is a winnable game. This is one that they can walk away with. And I'll tell you what, their right side versus Aiden Hutchinson, that's an advantage to Aiden Hutchinson. right? Like they moved on from their right tackle McGlinchey last year, and they have what McKivitz in there right now. McKivitz is not suited to play Hutchinson. He's not going to be able to handle him.
Right.
I think their interior guards are not as stout, and that's what can I think help the Lions start to stop the run. If they can be powerful, if they can blitz in the middle, like they blitzed their safeties and their last week, just like they did against Minnesota and
Right.
Denver, right?
Yep.
And so like you're probably not gonna be able to do that against San Fran, but you know what you can do? You can blitz your linebackers, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you start blitzing up in that middle, you can start taking advantage of those safeties. I mean, the way that Glenn was utilizing the blitz last game was very aggressive. He was putting those linebackers up and then dropping the linebackers back into coverage. He was setting up some confusing things. And if you can do that against this offensive line and you start to control the ground and you can control the ground on both sides of the ball, you can win.
And I mean, I think that last week's game between the 49ers and the Packers should give you all the confidence you need that this Lions team is going to compete. Not will, not can, will.
Yep.
The Green Bay Packers punted one time against this 49ers defense. One time. They missed on a 4th and 1 conversion. They missed a field goal. They threw 2 interceptions in that game. If they just
last one was terrible.
The last one was terrible. This is a team that is just, they're beatable. The 49ers gave up a $136 on the ground and 4.9 a carry to the Packers. And the Lions can run the ball better than the Packers. They can. They have better backs. They have better offensive line. I know it's not the same, and the 49ers are going to have a different game plan against the Lions than they did the Packers, but this isn't...
I don't think it's going to be that far off.
But maybe not.
Honestly.
But, I mean, it's not like the Packers did anything mind-blowing, right? It's not like...
No.
Not like Jordan Love pulled all these crazy plays out of his butt. Like, they were dominating that game.
Yeah, they were the line.
Beating them at the line, and the Lions are a team, like I said, that are capable of doing that on both sides of the ball. Is the Lions front 7 or front 4, I should say, on defense? Are they going to, create 10 pressures on their own? No, probably not, unless Aiden has 9.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but in terms of stopping the run, in terms of dominating the ground on offense, the Lions have the better personnel. They do. And it's going to give him a shot. It's going to give him a real good shot in this game. So I went into this week thinking, I don't know, the 49ers are kind of the cream of the crop. But then I remember, so are the Lions. They belong in this group. I said it yesterday in the podcast. Like, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the 49ers, and the Lions, all 4 of those teams belong to be here right now. All those teams should be considered on the same tier because they are. And that could mean we're talking about the Super Bowl next week. That's the reality we're living in. As weird and uncomfortable as it might sound saying it, that's where we are, Eric.
One game, 60 minutes.
That's it. We'll be there. All right. I think we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Support all year. I hope we got one more of these in us, but I guess if the Lions make the Super Bowl, we have 2 more in us before that game. But we'll be obviously at Levi's Stadium. If you're a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber, you'll get a post-game video from both of us side by side. We'll obviously still have a first bite for everybody coming later this week with a special 49ers guest to help break us down the matchup. But until then, for Eric, for myself, thank you all for listening. It's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
Okay. We got some questions here from our live audience we want to get to, including from a 49ers fan over on YouTube. Hopefully you're still here. We like to have that graphic in the top right of the screen that tells you when we're recording we don't respond to chat or messages, but this is the break part where we do. There's no graphic in the top right. I don't know if does anyone even look at that graphic over there in the top right? People pay attention to that? I don't know if they do. Either way, We're on break. And so James Welsh, hopefully you're still here on YouTube, says, I'm a 49ers fan, $5 donation to ask this question. So very much appreciate that, James. I'm a 49ers fan. What's your perception of Brock Purdy? Where does he rank in your list of offensive weapons to prepare for?
I think based on the Lions' philosophy, Christian McCaffrey is their number one priority.
Okay.
After McCaffrey,
Debo?
Yeah, it's either Debo or Kittle. Probably Debo, just because of how they utilize him. I think Kittle, it's a little bit more. You know how the tight end's being utilized, whereas Debo can be in a lot of different spots. So you have to prepare for Debo a little bit harder. And then Kittle, and then Purdy. I would put Purdy ahead of Ayuk. Yeah, I would say that's the order. And I 100% think McCaffrey is number one with a bullet based on how the Lions prepare.
Yeah.
But after that, I think you can debate where they would go. But I would put Debo two, and then I could argue. I would entertain an argument for the 3-4.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard. It's weird to rank weapons with a quarterback.
Sure.
Because I mean, there has to be someone feeding them all the ball, right?
Right.
You have to prepare for it all. It's not like we ran out of time working on Brock Purdy this week.
No, that's not what I'm saying. but like they're going to prioritize the run versus the pass.
Yeah.
Which means it's McCaffrey, which means it's Debo.
Right.
Right? Like, because Debo's part of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
Right. But like so much of what they do is also the play action off of that. And Purdy's a guy that can get on the move out of the pocket a little bit. He's not a guy that's going to run a ton, but like he doesn't need to stand in the pocket the entire time. They'll run some bootlegs. They'll get him running around a little bit. And listen, he can make every throw. He doesn't have a cannon of an arm, but he's not afraid to throw it deep. He's not afraid to throw it over the middle. He's accurate.
He's accurate.
Can throw it on the sidelines.
But he can also slump. Like
sure.
Look at the 3 games they lost in the middle of the season, right? A lot of those were because of decision making on his part, right?
Yep.
And they didn't have Debo during those losses as well, which definitely hurt. But if you can get him uncomfortable, you can, and hopefully force some bad decisions.
Yeah, he's definitely capable of some turnover worthy plays under pressure, like any quarterback is, but it sometimes looks disastrous, right?
Outside of the Rams game, they've forced 2 turnovers. The last 4? The 4 out of the last 5. The Rams game was the only one they didn't force 2, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the Rams definitely did not turn the ball over at all against the Lions.
Right, the Rams didn't, but they got 2 against. They got 2 against Baker.
Yep.
They got 2 against Mullins. They had 4 against Mullins the time before that. And I'm pretty sure they got Dak at least.
I think
did they get Dak once? Once.
If he had a pick against Dak in that game, I'm not sure if there was a second one, but yeah, I mean,
so maybe it's just the one in that game.
Right. There's definitely a little bit of a Nick Mullins bump in there, but the Lions have been creating a lot of disruptive plays outside of just interceptions, right?
Yes.
There's the increase in sacks, there's the increase in TFLs, there's the increase in passes broken up.
Pressures. Hutchinson has really.
Yes, we also got the Vildor punch out in the Dallas game, so there were 2 turnovers in that game.
Good. The thing that I'm most impressed with the Lions right now is the fact that I think Penei Sewell is playing at his peak.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aiden Hutchinson is playing at his peak.
Mm-hmm.
I think Taylor Decker is playing at his peak. Like, there are so many key guys that are playing at their absolute best right now. And that's a scary, they're scary to deal with, or they should be scary to deal with. Like, if San Fran is not looking at Aiden Hutchinson and saying, we have to account for him and shift stuff over to him because we're more scared of him than we are of the other, then they're not doing their due diligence. Like, right. What he's doing right now when he's one-on-one is stuff that it's like ceiling level stuff. He keeps resetting the ceiling for himself.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't think he's at his ceiling either. Like that's the crazy thing. Like there he had lulls during
Well,
the season, but right now
we thought
he's
this time last year he was at his ceiling, right? We like the way he finished last year.
Did.
Yeah,
a lot of people did. Yeah,
and then he came out and he's way better this year. Way better this year.
He's huge. We're also seeing JMO play better than he's ever played.
Well, I mean, how many
Lions uniform?
How many like fresh-legged guys do the Lions have? Weirdly,
what?
Like JMO's fresh. Iffy is relatively fresh. Like he's only been starting for a month or two. CJGJ is fresh. Maybe James Houston this week is going to be a little fresh. JMO obviously missed the first month of the season. Like so many of these guys that are playing and starting to hit their strides are also guys that are not going to hit any sort of wall, that are not slowing down at all because they got a month or two off during the season.
We were commenting during the game about how JMO was basically running 40 yards down the field and then just like skipping on back to the huddle
right.
And then 40 yards down the field as fast as possible and then skipping on back to the, like he never tired. He was like, I know they sub him out so that he gets his rest, but like
Gibbs too, like another guy that didn't use a ton in the first month or two of the season, and now he's hitting his stride. It's almost like the Lions knew all of this and paced some of their younger players.
It's look, they have holes, and I think if you are comparing the two rosters, I think almost everyone is going to say that San Fran has a better roster up and down as far as talent. They've been building it a lot longer. They have guys in spots, but the Lions, their superstars are playing at a high level right now. And when that happens in the playoffs, who knows? It gives you a chance to win.
We got off your question, James Welsh, but I hope we answered your perception, our perception about Purdy. I think he's, I almost still think he's a little underappreciated, even though he was almost
he was an MVP candidate until he had that slump, right? I mean, so like, I don't know if you can say he was in the MVP conversation and then also say he's underappreciated.
But I think like people were so eager to get him out of the conversation a little bit.
Yeah,
like that one or two bad games, it's just like, okay, now we don't need to talk about him anymore. He sucks. And I'm just like, okay, well, relax. There's a middle ground here. Maybe he wasn't the MVP this year, but he also doesn't suck.
Well, look. Do you know how many people are so quick to do that with Lamar as well?
Oh, yeah.
There's only one player in this league that is infallible when it comes to the national media.
Yeah,
okay,
you're right.
And he's wearing red and white and yellow.
Right.
He plays in the AFC Championship.
Because I mean, Josh Allen is the same way too, right? It's like everyone thinks he's great, and then like he has a 2 turnover game. He's like, oh, he's the most turnover prone quarterback in the league. Blah, 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 blah. I feel bad for Josh Allen, man. Like that is an extremely fun player who does some incredible things and just has not been able to get over the Patrick Mahomes bump, and everyone thinks he's a problem now. I don't know. It's very weird to me.
I like Josh Allen quite a bit.
I do too.
How about that draft class with Josh Allen and Baker both making the playoffs? Like that class was thought of as like being like disposed of. Like they were like, and then this class is, so Baker did well as his rookie, and then he struggled, and then Josh Allen wasn't quite to where the Josh Allen now.
Yeah.
And I think people were so quick to write them off and be like that this quarterback class was a disaster. Now Josh Rosen. All right, Josh Rosen was terrible. But I mean, I'm saying like Josh Allen turned it around and became great. Baker, it seems, like he's revitalized, right? Yeah. And so
it's
look, you only hit on half your quarterbacks every year, guys. Yeah. Like, yes, I know Josh Allen's terrible, or Josh Rosen's terrible. Sam Darnold was terrible. Look, I get it. That there are going to be duds, and half of the quarterbacks drafted are going to be duds. That's pretty much the way the NFL works now. And honestly, the odds are more than half of them are going to be duds.
True.
That's just the way it is. But to have these two guys both make the playoffs, I thought was a turnaround for what looked like a terrible draft.
And I mean, it's also a testament that, in particular with the quarterback position, it's not always where you when you go, but where you go.
Where, yeah, because Rosen got the heave-ho because they hired Kingsbury.
Right.
And Kingsbury was like, yeah, I don't like him. Let's get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean,
he was the number 10 pick.
I'm not saying Josh Rosen becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback elsewhere, but like he has much more of a shot somewhere else, man. Like he was given a poor deal. I mean, Lions fans of any fans should understand the idea of sometimes it takes the right pairing of coach and quarterback, right? Like Jared Goff is a much better quarterback than he was in L.A. I know he made a couple Pro Bowls. He made a Super Bowl in L.A., but his development plateaued under Sean McVay, a guy who was unwilling to work with him, unwilling to put more on his plate, and then just tossed him aside. And Detroit's like, oh, no, we see all of that good stuff, and we see a palette that can still be chiseled into.
The Twitch chat has turned into a quarterback graveyard. Just listing names of bad quarterbacks. That's what's gonna look this year. There's all these quarterbacks that everyone's like, "Ooh, this is gonna be fun." 3 quarterbacks go in the first 3 picks. Guess what? At least one of them is going to be god awful, and another one of those 3 might not do anything.
Yeah,
because that's what happens. Because the translation from college to pros. It doesn't work. You have the best football minds on the planet trying to figure it out, and they can't figure it out. Like Mahomes was written off because he played at Texas Tech. Right? Like that.
If you look long enough, you'll find a reason not to draft anybody.
Oh, that's 100% what happened. What's happening again? We're in that mode. Right? Like last year, it was like, just wait till next year. The class is going to be great. And then by the end of this college football season, they were all like, this class isn't very good. I think next year's class, like immediately switched on
every
clockwork.
Year.
Come December, this quarterback class isn't as good.
Did Erik just call the draft a crapshoot? Real journalism. Yep.
No.
Yep.
At quarterback.
Nope.
At quarterback.
That's what he said. He said, don't.
No.
He said, stop scouting the draft. It's a waste of time because it's a crapshoot. That's what I heard.
Not when you have the hit rate that Brad Holmes has.
All right, let me get to some alerts, and then I think we're going to get out of here for some dinner for everybody, so that you guys can enjoy dinner and the rest of your evening. 100 bits from Nick the Greek says Erik would be best friends with Cleet Blakeman on shrooms after he realizes, quote, we're all connected.
No.
100 more bits from Nick the Greek says Muir Woods is a quick spot to see a huge redwood trees without going out to a place like the Sequoia National Park. Quick drive. The tea house at Golden Gate Park is beautiful as well, but someone will try to sell you shrooms, so be wary. Another 100 bits says over under on the number of national, quote, crying Taylor Decker stories if the Lions beat the Niners. 11.5 is my guess. He's an emotional dude. One more 100 bits from Nick the Greek. It says Matt Patricia's tried grass for the first time on a trip to San Francisco in 2002. It was so strong that he had the munchies for the next 2 decades. All right. Steve Hammersley, thank you for subscribing over on YouTube. And I think I'm caught up. I got nothing else. Bangers and mash. How's their mushy peas, Dan? I don't know if I've never had bangers and mash, which is just like sausage and mashed potatoes, right?
I think more or less, right? To simplify things.
Yeah. If I'm going British cuisine though, I think I'm more of either. Oh God, what's that casserole that has like mashed potatoes on the top and beef and stuff in them under it? What's that one called? I'll
just wait for Dan.
I'm either that or like a fish and chips, shepherd's pie.
Shepherd's.
That's what I'm thinking.
I became I really like the salt and vinegar, like the chips and stuff. Like I was introduced to those from my English friends. Those I could eat those I eat salt and vinegar chips all the time. I know that's not a meal, but we're talking stuff that you maybe were influenced by.
Let's get some Kelvin shepherd's pie.
We'll eat our Kelvin shepherd's pie on top of the golden Tate bridge.
By the way, he knows how to eat. His Instagram, Kelvin Shepherd. I'm 100% jealous of where he's eating it every time. Like, oh my God, how do you know these places everywhere? All right. Time to get out of here? I think it's time to get out of here. Chat, thanks again for hanging out, for being entertaining, for laughing at all of Eric's jokes and none of mine.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Should we? We're not going to rate anybody. If you missed any of this, you can watch it immediately on YouTube or Twitch, or wait for it to go up on the podcast feed tomorrow. We are spoiling you guys. Podcast every day this week almost. I think tomorrow will be the only one in... Well, you'll get one. You got one Monday? Today. You got one... Is today Monday? Today's Tuesday. Got one Monday. You got one Tuesday. You're getting one tomorrow. You'll get one Friday.
Sunday. You had a post-game one Sunday. Plus, if you're a PODD subscriber, you got one Monday morning, then one Monday night, then Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah. You're spoiled. That's all I'm saying. Not slacking off on Wednesday. How dare you? All right. We'll call it there. Thanks, everybody. We will see you Thursday night, almost certainly. I still don't have the guest or time quite lined up, but you can always check out us on Twitter for times, or just subscribe to us on YouTube or Twitch and, ring that bell or whatever they say on YouTube and set up alerts. You wouldn't get it. You're too
No. I'm interested. I like your voices. You got a lot of voices today.
Ring the bell. Anyways, just set up alerts.
That was very Norm McDonald-esque.
Oh,
from where he's like, ring the bell. From remember the one where he was the butler and he got kidnapped with Dave Chappelle and the movie I'm talking about, right? Where Norm McDonald was.
Norm McDonald gets kidnapped?
He was a butler.
Is he? Yes. Is it Dirty Work?
Is it?
I don't.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, where he and he does the voice. He does the voice of the kidnapper, and it sounded just like, "Oh, dude, give me all your money." Like that was the same voice.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is actually Dirty Work, but
go watch it. I don't think it was Dirty Work either, but it was. But I'm gonna look it up and then I'll tell you after.
All right.
I mean, just look up Norm's IDM.
IDM.
IMDb, whatever it was called.
You see what I have to deal with, chat? You see how old this man is?
You know what? It's not that. I don't think it is Dirty Work, actually.
Screwed?
I'm gonna look it up. Now
someone said Screwed. I don't know if they're just...
It is. That's it. Yes, with Danny DeVito was in it.
Oh.
He was. Oh, yeah.
I've never seen Screwed. I've never even heard of it.
Yes. Oh. He's okay. He's the butler for basically like a Betty Crocker type heir, where she like runs this bakery, and his dad was her butler, and then he took over the family business of being her butler, and he concocts this plan to kidnap her dog, so that him and Dave Chappelle. And in order to kidnap the dog, in order to get a ransom, because he feels like he's not getting his due, because she treats him like garbage.
Sure.
And it goes awry.
No.
And then I'll leave it at that. Yeah. And then they there's all kinds of ridiculousness. And yes, it is Screwed.
I think
yes.
I think we found a new spin-off podcast, which is Erik describes movies from the 90s.
But is it? I don't even think it was the 90s. But I'm not. But this is Norm at 2000. All right on the edge there. But if you're a Norm Macdonald fan, which I know you are,
I sure am.
You will like that. You will like the movie because, like I said, Chappelle, Danny DeVito. You'll like it. You will like it.
Okay.
And I think it'd be a fun, nice little distraction if you're trying to not watch football. Which is something I recommend everyone try and do this week.
Ooh.
Because I have found myself just focused. Yeah.
10% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah. People will hate it, but like it's one of those movies that I think you would like.
The
I think
critics don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think you would appreciate it because it's dumb. It's just dumb humor. But he does like a bad voice.
What are you trying to say about me?
No, I like that humor. I like that dumb humor. So let me tell you. Okay, so Con Air.
No.
They asked.
You're gonna have to. That's gonna be a new Patreon from Pride of Detroit. Is Erik describing 2000s movies? Don't ruin if you haven't seen Con Air by now.
No. Yes.
All right, we're getting out of here. Thanks again to everybody. We'll see you guys Thursday.